when my mum messages me about a piece of news, I kind of think it's worth kind of talking about. And so the whole idea is that Apple have partnered with Ripple in some kind of way to do the payments. So it didn't take much digging and much level-headedness to figure out what was really going on. And I think it's quite exciting. But I want to kind of go through it for everyone here, just so that we have a base understanding of really what this news is. So I guess the big thing here for me is that the assumption is that XRP is the sole cryptocurrency that is going to be used for these payments. XRP is going to be used, I'll tell you that much, but I want to get into a few things. So there is such a thing as Interledger protocol. So I'm going to write that down. It's actually known as ILP. An interledger protocol allows for the transfer of information from one blockchain to another. So let me show you it in this kind of illustration here. So interledger protocol is like you've got a blockchain here and you've got a line in the middle. You've got another blockchain here. So these are the origin blockchain and the destination blockchain. And these two blockchains don't always talk to each other, right? They don't always work well together. They don't play nice. And so you might have the XPL here. And then on this side, you might have the Bitcoin network. Now, because they don't talk to each other very well, what Interledger Protocol have done is created a system within, and this is ILP. And so ILP basically allows for the conversion of XRPL language into Bitcoin language, but also, this is the important thing, allows for tokens to travel through in this way. So you can actually have XRP tokens make their way through in value over to the Bitcoin network. Okay, so ILP has really figured out this thing in the middle, and this is what is called interoperability. So when you say, okay, we've got the Ethereum network, or we've got any other network that you can think of, right? ILP would allow the conversion of the origin blockchain, the tokens to flow into any of these other blockchains. So ILP is a super interesting piece of tech, right? And it's what has basically come out in the news is that Apple are using a partnership with Interledger Protocol. So ILP and Apple working together on what is being called a payment request API. Now, a payment request API is when the origin location requests payment from another location. Okay, so again, we're using those two boxes and a line. So an API is actually called an application programming interface. Okay, so an application programming interface is an API. So we hear APIs said a lot. API. Now, an API, essentially what it does is it allows for two different programs that are built in completely different ways to actually talk to each other. So if you liken it to the idea of you go to a restaurant, you basically make an order with a waiter or a waitress, and then the food comes to you later. So you've engaged through different mediums to create a process, but two different systems, right? So you've gone from the human system where you're asking the waitress or the waiter for your food, and then on the other side, the chefs learn about this, they make the food, and then it's delivered back out to you. So that's kind of what an API does. It allows the interoperability of two different softwares to work together. And so, of course, when you look at the idea of a payment request API, so now we're looking at payments. So instead of it being food transfer, like turning an order into food, you're actually turning a request for payment into a payment. So let's say A requests a payment and B has to make the payment. So A can send on this API a request to get paid. So that's the request. And then B can pay, right? And these are two different systems that work together. And so what we've basically got here, these two systems working together via an API is essentially Interledger Protocol interacting with Apple to process these payment requests. Now, many of you will be thinking, well, ILP means XRP. And well, let's dig into ILP a little bit more. So with Interledger Protocol is made deliberately to be what is called, let me just make sure I get this wording right, currency agnostic. currency agnostic means, obviously we understand what currency means, but agnostic means, it's not defined by one thing. It can be any. So it can be any currency. Okay, so if you think about Bitcoin, Ethereum, hey, what even about the USD or euros or Great British Pound? Like, this is currency agnostic. So for ILP, it doesn't matter what the currency is, but when it's working in an API kind of format with Apple, Apple are going to favor a specific set of currencies because it will serve the bulk of their audience in one go. Okay, so I think when I was looking at it, these were the currencies that are going to be used in addition to XRP. Sorry, I made everyone go. In addition to XRP, it seems like these are the ones that are going to be used. Perhaps I'm missing Japanese yen, but for the most part, these are the ones that are going to be used in this Apple integration for the payment requests. Okay, so when we look at this is actually, in my mind, incredibly good news, because ultimately what's going to happen is that Apple are going to favor ultimately the best technology, the technology that solves the problem the most. Okay, so the reason that Apple would do this in the first place, let's get into this. The reason Apple would even do this partnership in the first place is to alleviate pain. Okay, so we need to, companies, anyone, any individual needs to alleviate pain, and pain can come in many forms. Apple's pain would be the cost of transaction, the speed of transaction, and the reliability of those transactions. And so when you're presented with Bitcoin for payments, you don't really get any of these. Maybe you get reliability. So maybe we get reliability with Bitcoin, but it's not that important. But then you get Ethereum. Okay, well, you've got maybe reliability again, but not really speed or cost. And so what I'm trying to illustrate here is that companies like Apple will choose the best solution, or will favor the best solution and the best technology that solves most of their pains. So you've got the likes of XRP, for example. It's low cost, it's very fast, and it's reliable. So in that capacity, it ticks all the boxes. And so ultimately, over time, and this is an over time thing, companies like Apple will see that their pain is best alleviated by a specific technology. And that technology, ultimately, as we know from that lineup, will just be XRP. But these things don't happen straight away. They have to test these things. They have to make sure that, when you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, they make up a massive part of the crypto market. So they can't actually dismiss anything about Ethereum or Bitcoin. They have to participate in Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is why you can use XRP as the token for the efficient transfers of things, but you have to include Bitcoin and Ethereum because that's the majority of the retail world in crypto. Is also what Apple is trying to appeal to. Apple's not an expert in cryptocurrency. They're an expert in the market, right? So they're including these other assets to make it more widely available to the general audience, because that is their audience, right? Apple aren't making iPhones for XRP users. They're using iPhones for generally to start integrating cryptocurrency. And the best way that they could alleviate their pain in this initial stage is to make sure they partner with a company that can integrate as many blockchains as possible so that they can allow as many customers of theirs as possible to be affected by this update. So I think when you look at now, we've got the onboarding of ILP, right? Let's say Apple and ILP. That's right now. We're like right at this phase where they're targeting a wide audience and they're just seeing how it works, essentially. But as time goes on, creating a more efficient payment structure and ultimately just choosing the best technology will put us in a place where we don't have an Apple and Ripple partnership. That won't happen. Or at least, in this capacity, it wouldn't. You have Apple actually using XRP for all their transactions with ILP just because it's the most efficient system to use. The best technology always wins over time. You just have to give it time. Now, when you look at time and how that was all playing out, what kind of makes sense for me? Well, that 2030 region, I would say 2027 to 2030 region looks the most appropriate for this kind of thing to happen, because this is when CBDCs are starting, the wholesale CBDCs and retail CBDCs are all coming into effect in that time period. It also makes sense for me that large corporations would start publicly using certain cryptocurrencies, or at least actually having real cryptocurrencies flowing value through their systems and payments. So this is kind of how I see this whole this whole thing. And I know people getting very excited about Apple and XRP, but just try to add a little bit of like depth in the research whenever you hear something like that. One, it doesn't really even matter because you know what you hold. You just have to give it time. Time is ultimately the biggest shower of the hand, right? But if you are going to be diving into this all the time and stressing out about it, go a few levels further, and you'll just see that this is actually a reasonable move for Apple. It doesn't mean XRP all the time right now, but it does mean a variety of different currencies that are going to go through Interledger protocol in this very simple way, and over time, the best ones will win. And if you just leave it like that, that's considerably less stressful to be thinking about, right? Because simply put, it's just a business move that makes the most sense to alleviate pain for Apple. And so don't worry so much on the day-to-day movements of these things. It's all very exciting, I understand, but it doesn't need to be your sole focus. There are other things that you should be focusing on that have a higher impact on your life than worrying about Apple and XRP. Okay, these are things that are out of your control. You can't control any partnerships that happen. You have no say in it. That is one of those things where you're devoting so much, or you can possibly devote so much of your energy and bandwidth to things that are out of your control. It seems silly to do that when there are plenty of things that you're not paying attention to that you can control that would actually enable you to get to where you're getting to. None of this stuff will get you where you're getting to. What will get you to where you want to be is being able to put in a plan of action to actually benefit from the bull run, actually take profits, not wait and see, or I'm probably going to sell some around this price, or I might sell a bit here and a bit there. None of that's solid, and none of it will work in a natural bull run. So focus on what you can control. I'd suggest that an exit strategy is what you can control. And I think 99% of people have that within their control to do, and they're just not doing it. And all it means is you're going to have to wait till another bull run to get something beneficial. You're going to have to go through the whole bull run, lose, learn your lesson, and then benefit the next bull run. And I don't think people have 4 years to spare. Like, who's just going to give up 4 years? Anyway, that's what I've made my Blockflow program for, recruiting a very specific type of person with a very specific need in crypto for that program. You know, the link is on the screen there. But great news, I think, this Apple thing. Just don't let it overwhelm you with echo chamber type conversations about how it's only going to use XRP. Potentially at some point, but not right now.